Today I want to share the secret of doing great things in small organisations. And to do this, I want to consider the link between school improvement and mouldy bread. Growing up in a seaside town, I spent most of my school holidays working in the catering industry. And I vividly recall the practice in one hotel kitchen of scraping the mould off the bread before it was toasted, cut into nice triangles, and taken through into the restaurant. It was only many years later that I pondered how such a thing could happen. The part of the kitchen where the toast was made was beyond the head chef's line of vision, and the teenage lad making the toast didn't care. So this inadequate treatment of the mould problem was caused partly by lack of oversight by management and partly because the employees did not care. For schools to improve, it's vital that everyone does care and sees school improvement as part of their role. In other words, everyone needs to ask themselves, what are my mouldy bits? School leadership is about engaging everyone in the total elimination of mouldy bits. It's about creating the conditions for improvement. Typically, these focus on teaching, behaviour, finance. But there's one more condition which can make the difference between becoming good and becoming great, between a flash in the pan and sustainable transformation. That secret of school improvement is difficult to do in the current climate. That secret is the unspeakable C word. That secret is connection. School leaders at every level need to seek out opportunities to connect, but with all the external pressures towards competition, balkanisation and disruption, this takes courage, creativity, determination. This is because we work in a culture where we have zero tolerance of failure. Sounds great, doesn't it? There's just one small problem with that. It's rubbish. The problem with zero tolerance of failure is that at some point everyone fails. So we are in fact building in an expectation of intolerance. We label schools, school leaders, and children. We forget that labels are for jars, not for people. We're forever raising the bar, yet labeling and raising the stakes do not inspire, they demotivate. This mindset was clearly on view in a flyer I saw for my local paper recently. Has your school gone up or down? Well, yes, I thought, but there's not much you can do about subsidence. Maybe this is why I feel so nauseous some mornings when I'm going into work. My school is going up and down. But on a serious note, this unbalanced competitive analogy can leave you scouring the papers on exam results day, looking for schools where young people have done less well than your own. This cannot be healthy, because in some cases you are willing young people in the same town, in the same street, sometimes even the same family, to do less well than your own, just so that your school looks better and you postpone your sacking for another 12 months. The only way that we are going to improve our education system is by working together to create a love of learning in all our young people. We need to work together to create a love of learning in all our young people. So let me share a few thoughts about connection. Within a few weeks of my first headship, I received this note from a parent. Kieran will not be doing his French homework this week. If you want him to do it, he can do it in your time, not his. We believe in real-life learning. Real life, eh? France obviously doesn't exist. In the words of Tom Stoppard, it's some kind of conspiracy of cartographers. The first thing that we do to help overcome this barrier which exists between some families and schools is to hold a three-way conversation with the child, parent, and a school leader before the child actually starts at the school. This enables the young person to share something about themselves. It helps parents whose experience of school may not have been that great. And it enables the school to share something of the ethos and ambitions that it has for that young person. Sitting around a circular table is the physical expression of the fact that we are all working together for the good of that young person. As for internationalism, it's important to take advantage of all the opportunities which come your way. We have hosted Algerian curriculum leaders whose central question in redesigning their education system was, what kind of citizens are we trying to create? What a great question. What a great way of looking at education. It was also intriguing to meet with education leaders from South Korea. Strangely, they were not crowing about their position in the international league tables. Instead, they were really concerned about the long hours their young people were working. Setting what you do in a global context enables you to take a broader perspective and modify your own efforts in the light of what others have learned. It's also important to promote connection internally. We have a blend of vertical and horizontal structures, although I have to say that having introduced more such structures, I was a little bit alarmed to see on the school calendar the words horizontal meetings. Wasn't sure about the sound of that, could be misconstrued. But it is important, one way or another, to take people out of their silos, which otherwise can replicate a very insular view of the world. It's also important to foster links with business. Research tells us that if young people have 4 meaningful encounters with the world of work, they are 5 times more likely to go into education or employment with training when they leave school. This requires us to take the school into the real world and bring the real world into the school. And this takes vision. And by vision, I don't mean some kind of misty-eyed staring into the middle distance. I mean proactively looking for opportunities to connect. And businesses are very keen to connect at the moment, to help mould the future workforce and to develop their own workforce through activities such as business mentoring. This way, we are working together to improve our country. And this joint mission is not served by international league tables or selective international tests, what I think of as the overweening power of Pisa. We are told not to compare apples with oranges, and yet we erroneously try to make comparisons between Cox's orange pippins and chicken chow mein. This mass neurosis was clearly on display at a hustings at the last election, where I asked all of the candidates in my constituency the following question: how can we raise our educational standards so that we catch up with countries like China and South Korea? This is an important question, yet not one of the candidates challenged the assumptions in the question. We are doing well internationally. At the time I asked the question, the Pearson report ranked us 6th in the world. As for China, while some cities are doing very well, the country as a whole is a completely different matter. But this minor geographical inconvenience is often glossed over, as is the fact that if you have a one-child policy, education is going to be incredibly highly valued because the stakes are so much higher. But instead, all the while, we are left feeling suitably chastised, uninspired, demotivated. Finally, it's important to promote connection amongst students. I once taught a lad, let's call him Dale. Dale was dyspraxic, which meant that he struggled with basic hand-eye coordination. He was also a little eccentric. The first word that he ever said to me was fossils. Although in fairness, I had just asked the class, how can we find out about the past? He didn't just walk up to us in the staff room and say, fossils? That would have been rude. Perceptive, but rude. One of the most moving sights that I've seen in education was of Dale making his way up a climbing wall. Well, with his dyspraxia, for Dale, that climbing wall was a psychological as well as a physical challenge. Yet, step by step, hold by hold, and encouraged by the kind words of his peers, Dale made it halfway up, where he was applauded by his fellow students. What a beautiful example of connection. Of course, the obvious question that inspectors would ask of such a scene is, how do you measure that? Well, I think that if you give it enough thought, you can measure what you value. And I'd like to illustrate this from the wonderful world of shopping. Now, apparently, for some, shopping is regarded as a leisure activity. For me, if I'm measuring what I value being able to get out of a shop as quickly as I possibly can, and to this end have devised a simple formula to devise which checkout or till to go to. L times D divided by PE plus R equals Q, where So you're looking for Q, which is the queue to go into. L is the length of the queue, but it's not as simple as that, is it? Because you have to factor in D, which is the depth of items in the trolley or basket. Then you have to factor in PE. So you divide all of this by PE, the perceived effectiveness of the checkout operative. You all know what I'm thinking. So this is fine. You're making your way to the front of the queue. And then along comes R. R is the random object which is not recognized and requires the checkout operative to summon managerial assistance. In this country, we are reframing our assessment system. We are trying better to measure what we value. Yet even what we have now contains what experts describe as complications. And that's because assessment is being used to divide. Our national education system is neither national nor educational nor a system. Exam results, yes, they're important, but as we've seen today, education is something much, much richer. We need to re-civilize that part of the system over which we have control, be it a classroom, a school, or a group of schools. Some of our earliest learning experiences involve colouring in. Although for geography students, this phase lasts a very long time. But I also remember from my youth those magical books with mysterious numbered dots, which if you joined them up would bring an unseen image to life. Too much of what we do is about keeping within the boundaries set by government and inspectors. To make a difference, let's seek out connection. Let's transform our schools. Let's join the dots. Thank you.